And here we are. Welcome back to Luminary Leaders Live. I'm Shelly Harris, and I'm your host. And you see me here frequently, and I always have great guests. And today you're going to meet Cindy, who is a fantastic woman that I met a few months ago through LinkedIn, believe it or not. So give a wave, Cindy.
Hi, Shelly. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be your guest. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here too, Cindy. And I want to give our sponsor a shout out too. We have our show sponsor, Endeavor Mortgage, and that's Dan Leonard. He's in Seal Beach, California, but he can pretty much help you anywhere in the US. So if you have questions about mortgages or investments, that type of thing, feel free to reach out to us and we'll make sure that you can get in touch with Dan Leonard. But back to Cindy. So Cindy, I know that we had met via LinkedIn, and there's so much noise on there.
Yes.
And I thought, I'm just going to have my team reach out to Cindy, see, if maybe we can, just connect. And I learned a little bit about your story. And that's where I want to start. I want to start with, because we were in the green room and talking about, some of the things that you had to go through. And as a corporate woman myself, back before I started my company, I could completely relate. So let's start there.
Yeah, Shelly. I mean, listen, as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, we always face challenges. It's part of, what we go through. And I think my challenges were a little bit different. I'm going to start sort of 5 years ago, a little bit over 5 years ago.
Sure.
My life was sort of the American dream, if you will. I was working in a very lucrative corporate job. I had made my way up to vice president of corporate communications. I had the 2 kids, the dog, the happy marriage, living in the suburbs, everything. I was running, I was a marathoner running, 70 to 80 miles a week, healthy, doing all the things, traveling, everything was going perfectly, right? Until it wasn't. Right. Until life comes up and smacks you in the face, very unexpectedly. And that's what happens. And so, a week, I had run a half marathon. Like I said, I had run 13 full marathons, including the Boston Marathon, which, as many people know, is like the Super Bowl for runners.
That's right.
So I'd run a half marathon, and a week later, I was in the emergency room thinking I was having a stroke. And so I remember my doctor saying, and this will be 5 years this October, the good news is that you didn't have a stroke. The bad news is we think that you have this extremely rare disease, but we've never really seen it here before. So you probably don't. We're going to send your scans off to this hospital that deals with it. Go on with your regular life until you can get in to see them. So I'm very fortunate. I live in Atlanta, and they sent it off to a hospital in Atlanta that actually, there's only 15 hospitals in the world that deal with this disease. And one of them is in Atlanta. So for 3 months, I lived my life. I continued running, thinking like 2% of the world has this. It's not going to be me, until I got down to Emory. And lo and behold, they were like, you actually do have this disease. And not only do you have it, you have it pretty bad. So, so that was fun. So I was diagnosed and still have this pretty rare arterial disease that's called fibromuscular dysplasia. And what it is my arteries are weak, and they're misshaped in several places. And mine are misshaped in my carotid, vertebral, renal, and iliacs. And that,
oh my goodness, that's a mouthful.
It really is.
At least
Well, you sort of become, when you get diagnosed with something like this, you have to become your own, you have to become sort of your own advocate, right? Like,
absolutely.
You have to do the research. You have to fully understand it. You have to know what you can and can't do, because I'm fortunate that I am in Atlanta, where I have great doctors, but you travel and you don't know when something's going to happen. And I unfortunately have been in places, even like Washington, D.C., ended up in the emergency room. And I remember they had no idea. They had never seen this before in Washington, D.C. And I just remember they were like, do you mind? Like, we're going to bring all of the students from Georgetown. Like, so like, I was like, I was like, it's fine. Like, so they brought all these medical students down to like, look at me like, okay, she has this disease, and they're like looking at my scans and everything. It was kind of, like this book case study for them. But yeah, because it's such a
Yeah.
disease. So you have to be prepared for that. But, being diagnosed with this disease that really, honest to God, changed my life, upside down. There's nothing in my life that is anything like it was 5 years ago. Absolutely nothing.
Gosh.
It
Now,
fully
what
changed.
are some of the symptoms, Cindy, that you were experiencing at that time? Just to give our audience kind of I know it's only 2%, but it could be that one person that's watching that says, "Oh my gosh, that's what I'm feeling." I mean, what were some of those symptoms, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. So, I thought I was having a stroke. So I had my head for 3 weeks was like really the worst headache of my life. And so that, because it's in my carotid and vertebrals, it impacts my head a lot. And I actually have 2 brain aneurysms that they found as a result of this disease. So the disease, shows up in a lot of different ways, but most people who have it have significant headache problems like migraines. They're fatigued, chronically fatigued. And then because it's in our renals, most of us have high blood pressure. Those are like the 3 main symptoms with it. Because
Yeah,
mine are in my
serious with
yeah,
serious
and
symptoms.
because mine's in my iliacs, I have chronic like leg pain, which is weird. That's like the main
Gosh.
issue that I have. So like I'm in pain, right? Like I have daily pain in my legs. It's horrible. But so it
Mhm.
presents sort of differently, but most of us it presents with head pain, fatigue, and then
Mhm.
pain somewhere else. And that is really
Yeah.
what mine presented with when I showed up. And then, like I said, we have a list of things we cannot do. I take 7 medicines a day. I have 6 specialists that I see,
Mhm.
and a bunch of things like I can't run anymore. It's
I was
just
gonna say, yeah, especially if you have that constant leg pain, and
right.
being a woman on the go, like you said, 2 kids and, married and, a full-time career and all of that, and it came to a screeching halt. And
Well,
things
everything. Yeah,
yeah,
everything came to a screeching halt. Within the first 5 months of me being diagnosed, my husband, who is now my ex-husband, we're actually divorced because of this, because of my
mhm,
disease. I lost my corporate job because of well, we don't know for sure it was because of my disease. I went on short-term disability. 3
mhm,
days later, I lost my job when I came back. I
mhm,
lost 90% of my friends. I cannot
okay,
run anymore. Like legit within 5 months, my entire life changed because I was diagnosed, and my husband at the time, he still is active duty. He deployed for a year. So I
mm,
was faced with this extremely rare, very scary disease to
yeah,
handle on my own while my husband was deployed to the Middle East.
oh my
I had 2
goodness,
children, and I also couldn't run. I lost all my friends, lost my job, was told I had 2 brain aneurysms. It was like all the things at once where I was like, everybody says, God only gives you so much that you can handle.
that's right, and
And I
you
was
almost
like,
yeah.
God, I can't handle anymore. Like,
Yeah, it's
I,
almost like, okay, is this what rock bottom looks like, and how do I get
that's
out
what
of
I felt
here?
like. That
Yeah,
is,
and how do I get out?
that's exactly right. I truly
Yeah.
hit rock bottom. I
Mm,
couldn't have gone any lower. Both after I lost my job and I was told I had the 2 brain aneurysms, I got to probably the darkest place I had ever been in my life,
wow.
without a doubt. And I started drinking too much and acting ways because I felt like I had nothing to lose. What did I have? I
Right.
had
There was
no
no
job,
hope, or
no hope.
did you feel like there was no hope and there was really no clear end to what you were experiencing?
1,000,000%. I had
Mm,
lost my identity in every way possible. Who was I if I wasn't corporate Cindy, traveling every week, developing strategies? Who was I if I wasn't marathon Cindy, running 70 to 80
yeah.
miles a week? I didn't feel like I was a wife anymore because Kevin was overseas. I didn't feel like I was a good mom to my kids because I was sick all the time, so I'm in bed in pain. So who was I? Like,
Yeah.
I lost my full identity. Who was I? And so I absolutely felt completely hopeless. Very much so.
No doubt. And you are fast forward, you are doing some pretty amazing things, and let's talk about that, because from that point on, that was 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and you've had time to really kind of reinvent and just evaluate and push forward, right?
Yeah. So
Well, let's
fortunately,
talk about that.
when I was going through this time, like I said, I lost 90% of my friends. And that
That
was
would be
very, very
devastating.
hard.
Yeah,
Very,
for
very hard.
any woman.
I say all the time that, my ex, he had a 6-month period that he was going to be, we knew he was going to deploy. So in the September, 1 month before I got diagnosed, I threw him a deployment party and 350 people were at this party. No lie. It was like a wedding, fully
Wow.
catered, DJ, all the things. And
Mm,
every person was like, if you need anything, we're here for you. We'll start a
mm,
meal chain. Where did they go? Where did those 350 people go? They just out the
mm.
door. But
Vanished.
I had one person who stuck by me through everything. And I say that she pulled me out of that like rock bottom. So I say now all the time, and I use this phrase, it's my trademark phrase, like
Yeah.
it's so much better to have one dime than 10 pennies, right? She's
Mm.
my one. Wouldn't you rather have one dime than like 10 pennies floating around?
Yeah,
So
because they're shiny.
they're
Diamonds are shiny.
shiny, right?
Yeah,
It's
they're
not
smaller to carry.
right. It's
And who
easier
wants
to
10
deal with.
pennies, right?
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
easier to deal with. So she was my one dime, and she
Oh,
really helped me sort of get through all of this. And so
yeah.
she pulled me up, and that a couple of other things helped me through. But yeah, I finally got myself out of this deep, dark area.
Yeah.
And as a result, I said, you know what? I'm not made out for corporate America. I'm
Mhm.
going to take the leap of faith, believe in myself, and I'm going to start my own business. And that's what
And
I did.
yeah, and isn't that exciting to say I
It
can,
is.
and I have, I don't have a similar story other than I left the corporate world, thought it was everything, and I carried the weight of, on my shoulders. I carried so much on my shoulders. When it was done, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this feels refreshing." And then that's when my company started. I had a few things that I did. For you though, going from having that illness to, now having to reinvent yourself, I'm sure that there were some things that, aside from having the one friend that's a dime, uh, what kind of self-care things did you do? Knowing that you had to go through that and, you were experiencing it and you were having some, a lot of different, things that were not so comfortable.
Yeah.
What things did you do, Cindy, to just for self-care and things that helped pull you through?
I will tell you two of the biggest things that I did was as soon as I got out of my slump was I took a 3-week trip to Africa with my dime.
Oh, oh,
And that
wow.
was like a bucket list trip to just allow me to kind of get back to do what I wanted to do. And then I took a
Mhm.
3-week trip by myself to Israel and Jordan.
Oh,
And that really allowed me to manifest a lot of things,
mm,
to sort of um, there's to regroup, to reassess, to sort of do what I needed to do to kind of get back to where I needed to be, if that makes any sense.
yes, and
I
yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, and did it work? I'm sure you're gonna
Yes.
share with us. Yeah,
1,000,000%. I
yeah.
did a lot of manifesting. Did a lot of journaling. I just did a lot of sort of sitting in quietness and, reflecting and really listening to myself and believing in myself. And I have to tell you, like, I get the chills a lot of times when I talk about this because
You're giving
it
me the
really,
chills.
it really is true. When I was
Yeah,
in, the Wadi Rum Desert in Jordan in the middle of the night and all, it's just you in stillness and stars.
yeah.
You really are lost with just you and your thoughts and you have nothing else. And the reality is that moment in life like really made me realize how blessed I am to be able to be in this situation, right? By
Yeah.
myself under this, but also like how far I've come, right? Like, because 4 years ago, at that exact time, I was in one of the worst places of my life. And now I'm here in the Wadi Rum by myself in Jordan, like in this magnificent place under God's great, universe. And it just was such a
Mhm.
moment for me to realize, like, just it was just like this sort of surreal moment where everything sort of came full circle.
Yeah.
And so those were two big moments, but just a lot of, like I said, I did a lot of manifestation, a lot of journaling, just kind of like starting over because, running was sort of my therapy, and it kind of, now I've had to shift that to do other things, to journaling, like I said, to walking, to finding other things. Travel's a
Mhm.
big part of my life now, where it
Oh,
always
is
had
it?
been, but yeah, like finding new adventures, becoming sort of more of a worldly traveler, experiencing
Mhm.
different cultures and how they live and whatnot, which I wasn't necessarily doing prior to my condition.
Yeah, it kind of, I mean, it's just giving me that vibe of the movie with, Julia Roberts, Eat, Love, Pray. And I
Hmm.
mean, I think every woman, not every woman, but there are a lot of women who would just love to step out of the chaos of their life and say, you know what? I'm going by myself. I'm going on a trip. And for you to be able to do that, though, that took a lot of courage,
For sure.
especially going to another country, and needing the passport. And I'm sure you had vaccines that you had to get and all of that before you left. And when you came back, what was the first thing you did, Cindy, after, you go through this manifestation? What was the first thing you did?
Yeah, I mean, first it was, I took a lot of what I learned and what I saw, and I talked to my children a lot, because I felt like I had all of this sort of, I don't know how to explain it, information, whatever. I wanted them to sort of feel and learn a lot of what I had seen over there. And that was very big when I went to Africa, because I
Oh,
felt like,
I bet.
what I saw and felt over there, and, buying a child like a candy bar, and it felt like, I bought him a car, like the reaction from that.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of what I had learned and seen over there, and I told my stories, particularly to my children. But a lot of what I learned, particularly in Jordan, a lot of it I like I said, I expressed, I wrote down, but I've
Mhm.
still sort of taken it and am still living that, like feeling that lifestyle, that life, that feeling that I had over in Israel, in Jordan, still
Yeah.
to this day. Like it still has
Yeah.
such a huge impact on me. It's crazy how, people say that when you travel, particularly to that part of the world, it's like magical. And I was like, okay, yeah, right. But it really truly is. It completely changed
Yeah.
my life. It really did.
I,
And
I, yeah,
when
I
people
can
said to me,
imagine.
like, yeah, like, oh, you're sick, you have this disease. How are you going to do that, especially by yourself? And I talked
Mhm.
to my doctors, and my doctor was like, just make sure there's a hospital nearby that you can go to,
Mhm.
and there was, especially in Israel, Tel Aviv is a huge. So I was like, there's places I can go in case, God forbid, something happens, but I
Yeah.
knew in my heart nothing was going to happen. Like, I just knew that I was going to be fine. I really did.
Yeah. Yeah. And you set your mind to it, where you thought, you know what, I'm going to take this challenge. I'm going to just go out there and experience exactly what you're supposed to be experiencing and
Yeah,
bring it back. And like you said, it's fueled you and it's
absolutely.
kept you fueled. And I know that, people probably want to know too, that are watching and that will be watching this show. Here it's 5 years ago that this had occurred. And within the last year or two, what are those things that you're doing now that have propelled you into the work that you do?
Yeah. So first, that's what I want to say. Like, the reality is not everybody can afford to pick up and go to Jordan for 3 weeks and do all the things that I did.
Yeah.
That's just not the reality of it. But I do think that it's important for everyone, particularly if you're fighting some sort of a condition or a disease, rare disease like I have. And there's a lot of us, to find that place, that sacred spot where you can sort of have that moment, those moments of clarity and of
Mhm.
quietness, wherever that may be. Like, if it's at a park, at a beach, in your backyard, wherever it is, because I
Mhm.
feel like that is extremely important. Because, as you said, there's so much noise, right, in the
It
world.
really is.
There's so much of it, and
Yeah.
there's so much that we're pulled. There's so many directions, especially as women, that we're
Mhm.
pulled in. Mom, right? A lot of us wives, or maybe, not wives, employee, a caretaker, we're all, and then when we have these diseases, then we're also patient, research, we're all the things on top of it, that
Mhm.
we don't take the time needed to sort of just do that. And so I think that that is really, really important. So that is something that I have taken and learned from this, is
Yeah.
to my entire, like, job, like my company completely changed after that. So I realized after I came home from that, that, like, I can actually say no to clients who I don't
Mhm.
want to work with, and say yes to other
Yeah.
clients that maybe I wouldn't be making as much money with, but I want to work with instead. And I think that that's very, very important as well, is that, yeah, obviously we're here to make money. We need to make money. We need to live. But as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we have the flexibility to say, like, you don't align with my culture. You don't align with my beliefs.
Yes, that is so liberating to be able to
It
do
really
that.
is.
It
It
really
is.
is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because why, everything that you had experienced and, I mean, life threatening, where it could put you in a situation where, like you said, you can't run anymore, the marathons, and it really changed your life. And working with people that are going to create chaos for you or really make it difficult for you to run your company, there's no need for it, and
Absolutely.
and that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, where we can choose the kind of people that are in alignment with what we're doing. Yeah.
100%. And,
I love that. Yeah.
before I had my sort of eye-opening experience, my sort of realization, if you will, I
Yeah.
was an unhealthy person with a disease.
Mhm.
Now I'm a healthy person who has a condition. So I've sort of really changed
Oh,
my mindset.
yeah, you did.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
because of that, I realized though, like I always realized, like my dad passed away extremely suddenly at a very
Mhm.
young age. And after that, I realized like that really kicked me in the face, realizing how precious and short life is.
That life it Yes,
Yeah, and
it
then it happened to
does.
me again with my disease, and so now it's even more so that it's more important to really work with clients that you love and appreciate and
Yeah.
who do the same for you, right? Because your job, it
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
really be a job, right? It should be something that you love
Right,
to do, and
right.
that's why I'm so fortunate that, like, I will never go back into the corporate world. I know they say
Yeah,
never, but,
me
like,
too.
right? Right?
I'm committed not to go back. I mean,
Committed.
I don't
Right.
need to.
Right.
It's I love doing what I do, and I know you love doing what you do,
Yes,
and you're creating it as you go.
that's
And I
right.
know you had mentioned you have something that you're gonna be launching, a new program or something. We didn't
Yeah.
get too much time to talk about it, but I would love to bring it out now.
Yeah, really, really quickly. So I have a great coach, and I've said like that I have this passion of marketing,
Yeah.
but also of working for, I want to give back to this rare disease, chronic illness. We call each other Spoonies
Yeah, when you
community.
were mentioning that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how I can do that. And he said, there's people like you who are out there that maybe are afraid to sort of dip their toe into the entrepreneur world or how to figure out jobs that are right for them. Because in the corporate world or the 9 to 5, it's very hard for us because most people with a chronic disease are chronically fatigued or chronically have pain or something that
Yes,
makes it very difficult for them to be in that corporate world. So I'm
that's
working
right.
on a program that is obviously not going to make me a lot of money, which is not the basis of it.
Not
But
yet, not
not
yet.
yet. Right. But to work
Yeah,
with people who have chronic diseases and
yeah,
rare diseases to figure out a way where they can make money in a way that's sustainable for them and they're happy and they are not sort of, in pain every day or they're not like they're not lacking in their sleep. So if they have to take a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they can do that. And what's the
right.
best way for them? A lot of them have passions that they could make money with. They just don't know how to do that yet. So that's what I'm just starting to launch.
Yeah, and that is gonna be magnificent
Mhm.
because there are a lot of people that are experiencing chronic diseases, young and middle-aged and older. So and they wanna run their own companies, so they wanna learn how to I look back and I think, for example, last year, true story, I was on a flight and it was 3.5 hours, and then I, got in the car, drove home with my husband, went to the movies that evening with my kids, sat again. Next morning, I wake up and I had a horrendous pain in the backside that would not go away for almost 5 months. I could literally not walk or move around. I mean, it was awful. And it got to the point where I thought, if I had a regular job, I would have to go on disability or something. And I was still able to work. I mean, I worked regularly and, I wouldn't sit as much. I would get up and move around. I always try to do that, but it really debilitated what I could do. And everybody was helping, my husband, my kids, and different people that were helping me with things. And, the pandemic kind of helps
Oh
too.
yeah.
you know, because you're home, you're working from home, but it can be. And I think that's a great service that you're going to be offering, Cindy, because there are people, even if it's short term or it's long
Right.
term, you know,
For sure.
so
For sure.
yeah,
And it's listen, as much as the corporate world, I understand there's the stability and all of that. The
yeah,
reality is the corporate world is not a friendly place for people who have chronic diseases. It's just not.
no, it's not.
As women who have babies or who are pregnant, I saw that after I had my 2 kids. We're back
Yeah,
to work in 12 weeks. It's not.
that's
It's just,
right.
it's not.
Yeah,
So I'm
it's
here to help.
changed.
Mhm.
No, and I oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep
No, it
talking
has.
over
It's
you, and
changed.
I'm sorry.
It's
It
changed.
it has. It definitely has. And the great thing is you're here to help those folks that need that kind of support. And how do people get a hold of you to learn more about the program or you know, just take a look at it and explore?
The best way really is, and you've been running this, so thank you so much, is through my
Mm,
website, cindygersch.com. All of my emails on there, and all my social media is on there, which is I'm on every bit of social media,
platform.
LinkedIn, everything.
Yeah.
So you can get a hold of me through there as well. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the cindygersch.com has also my marketing agency on there, all the things that I'm doing. So that's
Oh,
by far the best
fantastic.
way. Mhm.
Fantastic. And I know you and I are connected on LinkedIn, and I want to encourage people to find Cindy on LinkedIn and also subscribe to Luminary Leaders Live because we have
Yes.
wonderful guests just like Cindy. She
Thank
shared
you.
a powerful story, and I really want people to, if you're just catching it, please go back to the beginning because you're going to find that Cindy was able to 5 years ago had this condition. Well, then a disease. Now she's calling it a condition, which I love.
Thank you.
But it's something that a lot of people can learn from what you've done and now what you're doing to help and support those folks that really want to be able to work and create revenue and an income and still, you know, have the ability to take care of their selves.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, Shelley. I
Oh, my
really do. Thank you.
pleasure, Cindy. Yeah, and I, you know, I couldn't wait for you to share your story on Luminary Leaders Live because I think that I can relate to it as a woman and the fact that I went from the corporate, you know, and I had my story, you know, and I'm not going to share it because today it's about you.
Mhm.
But going from the corporate world to starting your own company and really being an entrepreneur, there is nothing more than fantastic. I mean, it's
Agreed.
wonderful to be able to own your own company, call the shots, make, you know, build it the way you want, build your empire, right?
Yes.
Whether
Yes.
it's a male or a female, you know,
Right.
it's great owning your own company. And I can see it in your eyes. You know, you've got this wonderful, you know, foundation that you're building and continue to build. And we want to watch your journey. So, you know, I'll stay tuned with you on LinkedIn
For
and
sure.
see how things
Definitely.
are coming along. And I think, are you writing a book? I can't remember if we talked
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
So I'm part of a book right now that's out with like a bunch of other women who have, stories, inspiring stories. And yes,
Yeah.
I am working with my coach on figuring out the next. Yeah. Lots of people told me it has to be actually a full story. So I guess that's the next step.
Yeah. Yes, I think so too, because being an athlete and then, you know, being in the corporate world, having kids, trying to balance it all, you know, according to our own balance. That's one thing
Yes.
that I learned is, you know what, I'm not going to try and balance everything. I'm going to do it according to the way I want things balanced,
I love
right?
that. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. I love that. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, again, Cindy, it was wonderful having you on. Cindy Gersch here with me today. For those of you that are tuning in or you've been watching, follow her on LinkedIn. And we've got the information at the bottom that is scrolling across. So please take a picture of that and get in touch with Cindy. And we want to thank our sponsor, Dan Leonard with Endeavor Mortgage, for always sponsoring our shows. We appreciate the support. And we want to thank you for tuning in today. And remember to subscribe to Luminary Leaders Live on YouTube. And we were streaming on multiple platforms on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And this show and every show is uploaded onto all the podcast platforms. So you could be at the gym and have your earbuds in and listen to fascinating people like Cindy Gersch. That was my guest today.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All
Thank you so
right.
much.
Well, everyone, have a wonderful day. And Cindy, thanks again.
Thank you.
And we will catch you all next time. Thank you. Bye bye.